All right, everybody, I'm back. I think what I'm going to do today is put the oil pump in, put the intake on, and assemble the chain brake. I'll probably try to splice in a parts diagram, like an exploded diagram, to show you kind of what all's going in there. And hopefully the camera's in a good enough position right now that you can actually see as I do this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of two-stroke oil, put right on here on this O-ring. There we go, just a little bit. Let me show you real quick where that O-ring is. It's basically above this bar nut right here. Right back in there, you can see that right there. Right above this, there's a nipple sticking out with an O-ring on it. This basically stabs on there. It has a little bit of flexibility right there, you can see that. So that goes down in there. And then push that on until you feel it lock. Then you get the oil inlet hose lined up. And normally that thing just slides on there pretty nicely. All right, I think that's good right there. I'm going to take the old screw gun and back it down to maybe a number 10 on the clutch. I've said it in other videos, this is not an impact, this is a screw gun. So that clicking you hear right there is not a hammer, that's the clutch slipping. All right, the reason I'm doing that is after a while, your wrist or your hands will start to hurt from driving these in. And that right there, I can adjust the torque. So I did have to tighten these, but not to an insane amount. Okay, let's do the chain brake real quick before I do the intake. I'm wondering how many hours this thing had on it, because sometimes I find little bits of sawdust and oil that are like solidified. Then other times I find where it looks like something's been thoroughly cleaned. Like I stated the other day, I think this has been rebuilt. All right, so I'm going to put just a little bit of grease on the posts. I don't like to put too much on there. I feel like sometimes an excessive amount just attracts more dirt. But we're going to do that. Okay. Okay. Now these are fun to get in here sometimes. Okay, you want to be that way then? We'll go this route. All right, there it went, right there. All right, so that's the cam. This rides against the brake flag. That's what gives you kind of that springiness where the brake flag wants to go back, but you can still move it occasionally. Okay, next on the list. This right here, this looks relatively clean, like I said before. Some of this looks like it's got solidified crap on it, some of it doesn't. All right, long side always goes down. This hook right here goes for your chain brake spring. This right here goes to your chain brake band. Slides over that right there. That went together way too easy for normal. All right. Retaining clip down in the bottom for that cam. Then there's a retaining clip that's going to go in here in a minute. Okay, next we have our bushing that goes over that. Then right here, all right, you can see there's a slightly bigger hole right there going into a smaller hole, so that locks over. Now, our final E-clip goes right here. There's that. All right, wipe this little bugger off real quick. Now, I can do this normally one of two ways. One way is with a screwdriver. The other way is with a pull cord. I'm going to try for the screwdriver first, and then we'll go from there. All right, it's not going with the screwdriver, so let's turn this and we'll use the pull cord. All right, got it, finally. One thing I will gripe about with these mid-grade and homeowner saws is they don't have a lot of room in here for me to move around. I mean, if you've seen any of my previous videos, I don't normally have problems with like the 440s or the 660, the chain breaks on them. I normally don't have any trouble there. All right, let's get this cleaned off and we'll get to moving on this. I've got a Husqvarna 570 coming up. You can probably see part of it down. No, you can't, not on the camera. It's under my bench right now. I've got to do a pressure vac test on it. They're a weird one to have to pressure and vac test, and then kind of figure out what's going on there and what other parts I'm going to need. An old boy pretty much gave it to me. He couldn't get it to work, so he kind of gave it to me to basically do with what I will. All right, so all that went in there nice and tidy. I'll drop this in. Now, one thing I am doing to this this 290, I'm probably not going to leave it running a 325 chain. I'm upgrading it to a 3/8. I'm trying to decide between a 3/8 and a 3/8 7. I'm inclined to go 3/8 7. If I go 3/8 7, I will probably look at getting it fixed up with one of my 25-inch bars. And as I've said before, this is going to be my saw for a little bit to see what I think of it. I've got plenty of 60cc saws, but I kind of like the idea of playing with a 290, basically 390 conversion. I like that idea. Honestly, I've got fun. I've got two 036s that I climb with occasionally, or I will cut smaller trees with. I've got a 290 that was my brother's. I rebuilt for him. I run that thing occasionally. There it is, right there. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but how easily that bar stud was coming out. I didn't tighten that thing in. I just kind of barely even snugged it. That was to keep that belly pan from being tilted one direction or the other whenever I, to keep it from being tilted one direction or the other whenever I was tightening down the 4 cylinder bolts. Let's get that on there real quick. I'm getting this whole side assembled so I don't have to keep up with all the parts afterward. Then what I might do, I'm debating about whether or not I've got a 460 I've been needing to get to eventually, and I've also got a what was that, a 570? Yeah, I've got that 570 down there. I've got my 460 clone that I would like to get on pretty soon, but sometimes you got to set the fun projects off to the side for a little bit. Okay, one thing I want you to keep in mind, if you're ever doing one of these, right here, you see that arrow? Let me move it right there. See that arrow right there? That lines up with this casting line right here on the bottom. So I don't know if you can see past the fuel line that just tore off right there. That's another reason I'm getting a fuel line and an impulse line. But that arrow lines right up on that casting line perfectly. So just slip that thing over. If you have trouble, hit it with a little WD-40 and you shouldn't have any trouble then. That's perfect right there. Also, what you can do is, like I just did with my finger, you run your finger in there and that thing should basically set like flush. There shouldn't be a gap between the intake and the intake manifold. So I'm going to snug this screw up all the way pretty much. As tight as you need to. You'll know once you hit the point. I've got my impulse line there. Okay, I think I might even, let me rotate this over real quick. I want to keep that thing closed pretty well. I'm going to stick my muffler on there. All right, well, I managed to get that in there and got it pretty straight now, right there. This one was giving me stress, so what I wound up doing is use the good old belt sander, knocked the corners off of the stud. I didn't change the overall dimensions, but I just rounded the corners so that it would actually go in all the way. I don't know why it was doing that. If anybody is watching this, I don't believe I got any comments in the first one about this. Let me know if I should do a muffler modification to this thing. I'm upgrading a 290 to a 390, and I would like to know, should I do a muffler mod? I think there are things I could do to it to actually make it breathe a little bit better. But how far should I take this thing? Upgrading the old, I'm going to paint that, I think. I'm going to leave it on here. The backside was clean for right now, but I am going to take that thing off later and paint it. All right, but I'm going to take that muffler off later. Not right now, but I'm going to take it off later and I'm going to paint it. But let me know if I should do any modifications to it. And if so, what should I do? I could probably take that thing and open it up. I've done that in the past. Take the baffles out of it. I'll probably take the screen out. I'll keep it because if it's my saw, I normally don't have to run a screen all the time, but I try to leave them capable of running it. In case you wind up in an area where you have to have a spark arrestor legally. There are areas around where you have to do that. There we go. Now I've got the exhaust port plugged for right now. All right. But yeah, I'm about as far as I can comfortably take it for the moment. Yeah, there's not a whole lot else I can do right now until I get some of those pieces. But yeah, let me know what I should do. Should I muffler mod it? Should I look at other upgrades to do to it? I'm just going to run the snot out of it for a little bit and see what I think. I've liked the idea of having something the size of a 290 with the power of a 65cc saw. But that's going to be it for right now. Y'all take it easy. Have a good one. Bye.